Hello, this is Garnet Dupuis, and we have a presentation here from Possibility Wave. The presentation is entitled Emotional Insight. Be true to yourself. I am your presenter, Garnet Dupuis, and co-founder and creative and technical designer for the Possibility Wave programs and applications. I expect this presentation to be about an hour long, give or take. Anyway, anytime that you'd like to connect with us, go to the website, possibilitywave.com. There you're going to see a whole collection of different subjects, including access to the Possibility Wave Open Classroom, which is an aspect of what we do in relation to learning. We think that learning is always best when it's shared. Okay. Emotional insight. Well, this presentation is meant to help you explore some of the key features in a new application, a new app, a new program. It's called Emotional Insight, and we're proud to have created this within Possibility Wave. There are two versions to this important app. One, which is simply entitled Emotional Insight, is a personal application, I guess you could say. The direct use, you would get it, and you sit and use it privately, and reap all the benefits directly from the experience you have. The other is Emotional Insight Pro, and as you might guess from the title, this is for practitioners, all sorts of wellness and healthcare life coach practitioners, where they would sit and work with their client or their patient, helping them do their exploration and discovery processes using emotional insight as the guide and source of reinforcements. So this presentation is, as best as I can, designed so that we see the facets or the elements that are key to both of these, the Emotional Insight personal version or the Emotional Insight Pro. I want you to know, first and most importantly, that Possibility Wave has a particular perspective or attitude or view in this subject. And that position is that a person, if they're given good information and the circumstances or the opportunity is positive, is supportive, is right, that person, I'll say you, me too, that you are the absolute best authority of your own personal experience. There's nothing wrong with having helpers. We all need help from each other, but inevitably, you know yourself best. No one knows you better than yourself. So whether you call it the inner voice, or the inner teacher, or the true guru, or whatever you think of, the fact that authority, that the absolute experience of insight can be sourced from within yourself. That's the view or the position taken by Possibility Wave in the design and creation and the offering of this app, Emotional Insight. This principle is fundamental to the whole design. As we say, be true to yourself. So the design of the app is such that you will proceed through various steps of exploration that inevitably lead to discovery, and that although we may help structure, create the circumstance for your exploration, that discovery, what we'll call the answers that you seek, that they come directly from you for you. Answers are never thrust upon you. There's no judgment as to, oh, it means this or it means that. Meaning is extraordinarily subjective, it's personal, it's private, and we believe that given the right support, that these answers that you seek, you will discover within yourself and for yourself and by yourself, with a little bit of help from your friends. I thought it might be interesting to take a quick peek into the backstory of emotional insight, where it came from, and some of the attitudes that are there in general that may not be evident as you go through the app and the experience itself. And of course, as is in many cases, this program evolved over time. There were many stages of experience that allowed it to take shape. So I'd like to say that it came in one big flash or a dream one night or something, but the fact is that it definitely did evolve over time. Time, yeah, it goes back many years, stretching back as, roughly at least 12, 15 years. I've had the chance to work with many forms of biofeedback and other aspects, many other aspects of wellness and healthcare and spirituality. And when I was working with these different tools, and most specifically, although not entirely, but most specifically with these different forms of biofeedback, what I noticed is that consistently, during the sessions, a variety of emotional states would emerge, that they would flavor the process, even if the process was focused more on, you could say, more energetic or perhaps even more physical elements and goals. It was almost impossible to disassociate the emotional content of the session from the other aspects or goals of the session. So bit by bit, the emotional characteristics of these various processes became more and more evident. And what I saw was that it was possible to use an analogy, to kind of hold up a mirror so that this person could see aspects of themselves that ordinarily were hidden away. And it's this mirror, and I suppose the mirror is the most common and highly functional form of biofeedback. You get to see things in a mirror about yourself that ordinarily you just don't see. And once you see them, you can do something about that. The mirror itself is not giving you the answers. The mirror helps reflect to you information that otherwise you don't have easy access to. So these various processes, many of them in the form of biofeedback, what I saw was that they could be designed in such a way to really maximize the mirroring element of the process in relation to the emotional states. So, and these past 10, 15 years has been remarkable in terms of the evolution of technology in general. The whole tablet and the amazing cell phone now become smartphone explosion has changed almost well, I can't say it changed everything, but it's really affected society and personal lives dramatically. And this is also true in the constant evolution of these new forms of biofeedback. It's a combination of the principles maturing and evolving and expressing new possibilities, as well as the fact that we have technologies now that are so easily available and so powerful and fast, even though they're so small. So what I began to do is shift my focus to integrating these different elements in relation to the process of emotional insight. So I integrated these different assessment techniques, these highly sensitive tools that allow you to gain insight into the significance or probability of different things that you're testing. Then also brain entrainment, which is pretty well known, but in and of itself, it isn't necessarily that powerful unless you put it into a certain context. And this is the context here, was to introduce brain entrainment into a program design that also had the assessment techniques. And then, boom, also recognizing that there are very significantly effective and attractive ways of affecting a person's psyche and energy states using various aspects of sound healing. So I took the sensitive assessment techniques and brain entrainment and sound healing and combined them with very well proven psychological processes. And altogether, wow, something very impressive began to take shape. And as it took shape, of course, I kept modifying it and working in different ways to try to bring it into kind of an easy use. So easy, as a matter of fact, that a person could even do it with and for themselves, not only with a practitioner, although there are really big benefits to having a practitioner. It's always good to have help. Then, what I began to realize is that there was really no single best approach. And what became apparent was that it was really better, maybe best, to work in layers, and that not any one layer was the best layer, but that each layer would offer options according to what would be befitting of the person at that time. So the results, I can say they were very encouraging. What evolved out of it were techniques for exploring what I was calling layers, the conscious mind, subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. It was a big surprise to keep following the trail, the scent of the way the processes unfolded, and then the way that they took shape. And I can't claim some kind of innate brilliance as to how it was. I was using pre-existing elements, but integrating them in a way that hadn't been integrated before. Always with, and I'm reminding you from the beginning, always with a fundamental premise was that no answer should be thrust upon a person. They should never be told what their answer is. You can help them explore, but the discovery really should be, need be, and is from the person themselves. This gave me a lot of confidence in the process because I wasn't putting myself into some kind of omniscient position, or for the practitioners using these techniques for people, that it was designed to understand that a person had to be true to themselves and that you were the helper in that process. And therefore the application needed to be designed as a helper in the process. I had a lot of clients come, all sorts, but the ones that really, I guess, made a significant impression upon me were the pros, the professionals working in mental and emotional health care. I had practicing clinical psychologists and even medical psychiatrists coming. It was a word of mouth thing. And what they reported to me, and I was taking their word for it, is that they said that they experienced sometimes they called it gain, sometimes they called it insight, actually the source of the title of the app, Emotional Insight. They said they gain or insight from just 2 or 3 sessions in this process was equal or greater than like a year or more of conventional therapy. When I heard that, first of all, I experienced gratitude that what was developing was effective, but also I was, I don't know, I guess, surprised, happily surprised, that these people, whom I respect, had these kinds of experiences and appreciations of the process. So that fortified, that gave me confidence. And as an extension of their feedback, this app exists today for you. That's the backstory. Yeah, it's interesting how things grow over time. I've happily a parent, and to watch and see how your child grows eventually into mature, amazing adult human being, and to watch and see how this process has developed has been very satisfying. And I and the whole team of Possibility Wave are enthusiastic about being able to offer this, and with the hopes that a benefit it can create. And as I'd mentioned, there are two versions. There's a personal version and a pro version. And they're both built in the same process. They present a little differently, obviously. The personal version even has the option to have somebody guide you through it by voice. You'll see things on the screen, but you'll hear a person speaking and guiding you through the process. Good stuff. Okay, let's have a look at the tools. And what I'm calling the tools are the different well, I don't know what, the different machines, I guess, at work inside the Emotional Insight app. The first one is more of a style than an actual tool because it's fundamental to the design. It reflects this thing that I was talking about where you are your own authority. It's called inductive inference, and it's a way of thinking. I'll be breaking each of these down in detail, by the way, as we go along in this presentation. There's inductive inference. That's a way of thinking or designing an exploration. Voice analysis, eye field assessment, brain entrainment, action strategies, and sonic signature reinforcements. Each one of these plays an important role in the overall design and the functioning of emotional insight. So let's go ahead and have a closer look at each one of these. It won't be too deep, but you'll have a reasonable impression, I hope, as to its function, its validity, and its efficiency. Inductive inference. Yeah, there are different ways of thinking about things, ways to recognize meaning. And, you know, it's a big study in philosophy, the whole study of logic and reasoning. But here, let's just look at it as kind of two different ways. Inference, of course, is when you find meaning in something that is not necessarily plainly spoken. That's an inference, you infer. And there are two kinds of inference. There's deductive inference and inductive inference. And deductive is sort of the world of Sherlock Holmes. This is where you ascertain an immediate set of facts and you don't go outside the boundary of those facts. You restrict yourself. It's not a bad thing, it's just a style. It's in a way that you create like a circumference or a box around the experience so that you derive all of the facts from that immediate experience. That's deductive inference. Inductive, that's the one we use in emotional insight. Inductive inference. This is where you take the same set of facts, so it's not as though we're throwing away the facts. I mean, here they are, they're staring you in the face somewhat. But at the same time, you keep the doors of the box open so that any and all experience, all the different sources of information from we'll call the world, the world around you, as well as the world of your own ongoing experience before and, of course, soon to be after what's going on. This is inductive inference. So inductive inference combines the facts with a whole range of experiences that may not be immediately, seemingly part of this experience, but in some ways they connect. That's inductive inference. So inductive inference, it's a way of approaching your own personal exploration and discovery. You take all your current evidence, the stuff that's happening right now. Do your best to see what it is, recognize and accept what it is for what it is, but then also allow yourself to combine it with the whole broad range of experiences you've had in life. So you're allowed to think, well, this happens now, but then that happened then. I'm like this now, but I was like that then. And in this way, it allows you to stay more open-minded. Because sometimes what you are really convinced are the immediate facts. there may be some distortion or even a certain amount of delusion in there. So by having some way of, some metric, some way of sort of litmus testing the facts with other experiences outside of this immediate circumstance, that helps you stay open-minded in the sense that you stay truthful and honest with yourself. It would seem that inductive inference combines very well with what we normally call intuition. Because intuition, it lets you make connections that don't necessarily seem so obvious when you just see the facts. It lets you kind of make bridges or leaps between things. It helps you make connections so that you have this world of reasoning, the apparent facts, but you also have the world of your feelings. And by feelings, it can mean the emotional states, but it's also that feeling heart, that thinking heart, along with the thinking mind. The thinking mind and the feeling heart, they get to work hand in hand. So with inductive inference flavored by intuition, it's possible to recognize meaning in previously entirely obscure experiences. Trust yourself. Be true to yourself. Inductive inference is not rigid. It's flexible. And that's one of the keys of it, that you resist jumping to conclusions. You watch and see how something settles bit by bit. Let the smoke clear, let the dust fall, whatever the analogy. And it's always with this, I think, incredibly wise attitude of not being absolutely sure, that you leave the window open a bit because of subjectivity. What you're seeing here is that you're working with highest probabilities, and that works so extremely well with the whole principle of how we work in possibility wave, with the possible, probable, certain dynamic. So it's about highest probabilities, and this is really healthy. There's a degree of subjectivity that you realize that facts can take on different colors depending on how they're viewed. So instead of pursuing some kind of idealized or abstract objectivity that probably doesn't even exist, what you do is you remain open and flexible. You're willing to take action, but you're also willing to learn. Inductive inference. The whole of emotional insight, and even other possibility wave applications and programs, recognize this dynamic and respect it at the highest level. It's a word that is, to some people, uncomfortable, because we would love to know absolutely the truth. Tell me the truth, right? When I was a kid, there was a TV program called Dragnet. Jack Webb, I think, was the actor, black and white. And his famous line was, well, if I can remember paraphrasing, give me the facts, ma'am. I forget it. Anyway, he used to really demand the facts all the time. Well, in this case, probably is a word that you will typically find in an answer derived from inductive inference. This degree of uncertainty, it's very healthy. Don't be afraid of it, because what it does is it allows for the growth of new understandings. You take a stand, you take action, but you remain open to ongoing learning so you can modify your understandings and then modify your actions. This is a flexible future where you allow the experiences to keep evolving and to present new meaning. I think anybody that becomes rigid in their belief system closes the door on new learning. Inductive inference helps you keep the door open. Okay, the next tool, voice analysis. Human voice. It's been well recognized in traditional forms of healthcare that the voice, along with other aspects of the person's presentation, are loaded with information. And now with science and the ability with technology to record and analyze voice and then study it for correlations, what you get to see is that, the human voice, my voice right now, is saturated with information. And whether you have the innate talent to recognize it or whether you're trained in some kind of process in, say, traditional Oriental medicine or even in forms of psychology. Also, if you have certain technologies available to you, you can harvest, you can gather information from the voice. And each person's voice is as unique as their fingerprints. So here we are, able to mine from the human voice all sorts of hints and clues regarding personal experience. And I'm going to be using the word clue quite a lot, and you find this word as an important word in the Emotional Insight app because it's not an absolute answer. It is a clue. It points towards something. And that thing that it points towards is the understanding that will emerge from you for yourself. Voice analysis. In Emotional Insight, we use a form of voice analysis that monitors your spoken word. So you're actually going to be speaking into your device so that we can get your voice, harvest your voice, log your voice, and take it in through a process, a varied process of analysis. And what we do with that is we get these profoundly insightful clues to offer back to you. It's a kind of way of holding a mirror up to your voice. Then we take these clues and then we weave them into the other processes from the other tools. So the voice analysis does not stand on its own. It's woven in and integrated into the entire program. Next tool. And of course, this presentation is not a depth presentation, it's more of an overview. I'm reminding you of that because each one of these subjects has a great deal more discussion that's possible. I-field assessment. This is quite technical, and I'll make a few references, but not go very deep. I will move along. It's called an advanced stochastic process, and stochastic may be a brand new word for you. Don't worry, I'm going to define it in just a moment. But we use these processes as ways of recognizing or identifying very important or significant probabilities in the process of exploration, in the application, in emotional insight. Of course, by the way, as you might guess, it stands for information, and there's this premise that there is an entire field of information. It's called different things in different traditions. Here in Possibility Wave, we call it the I field, the information field. And that the experiences of an individual and the experiences of this field merge. And in a way, if you access the I field, you can access individuals. I field assessment. So what about this stochastic thing? The more information you get, the more variables you have. The more variables you have, the more difficult, if not impossible, it comes to calculate things. You know, you want to calculate in such a way that you end up with a good, clear, firm answer. The problem is that when you have too many variables, there's no way that you can apply a calculation to get a strict deterministic valuation, meaning an absolute answer. There are just too many moving parts. So stochastic processes are ways of relating to big fields of data, information processes, and working with probabilities instead of certainties. Of course, the probabilities evolve into certainties, but you can't make it get there before it gets there on its own. I don't know, it may be a surprise to you, but stochastic processes are completely everywhere in our science, in all sorts of fields: nuclear, economics, pharmaceuticals, even probably most commonly in our weather forecasts. You know, statistics and this kind of analysis is really relatively new in science and mathematics. It's just really 100 or so years old. Goes back maybe 200 years in its basic forms. But it's new stuff. And now with the technologies that we have, the computer technologies to process data, wow, it's just exploded open into whole new areas of research. That's why we hear things like a 35% chance of rain, or you know, the economy stands a 70% chance of turning around. You know, open your ears, and what you hear in our language are words like chance, probability, likelihood, the odds. Where does all that come from? It comes from this style of calculating information, calculating large, highly variable collections of data. Possibility wave, and specifically here in emotional insight, uses a particular type of stochastic process, we call it advanced stochastic processing, to help derive information, to get clues, to point in the direction so the exploration can lead to discovery. This is a big subject here, but I can say briefly the most common confusion, you could say misunderstanding, is as soon as you look at stochastic processes and you encounter inevitably the fact that it incorporates the features of randomness or chaos, you think, oh, well then, you know, it doesn't mean anything at all. Any old answer is fine because it's all random anyway. That's a big mistake. No. Understanding a stochastic process, really it brings about profound thinking, but it's also a pretty simple, straight-ahead formula. In a stochastic process, the randomness or the chaos element is just one aspect. You have to understand that there are whole combinations of elements here that go to make up the process. The design of the process, the way that the information is gathered, the way that the information is stored, what's called weighting, not like wait for a bus, but weight like heavy, the way that you make sure that you're not working with, you know, apples and oranges without recognizing it. It's even like in horse racing, the way that they weigh the jockeys and the equipment, because it wouldn't make much sense. You're trying to see which horse is faster. You're not trying to make a measurement of two similar horses, but one jockey is 120 pounds, another jockey is 220 pounds. No, that totally skews the whole process. And then there are these things called algorithms. Maybe that word also is a little bit unusual for you. An algorithm is just a way of calculating. It's a way of looking at and making values out of things. It's a process. It's a kind of a formula. You know, I could say, take a, you know, I don't know, 10 people and have them watch a whole bunch of blue, yellow, and red balls moving in front of them. And I could say to person A, okay, you count the red balls. Person B, you count the blue. The next person, you count the yellow. And the next person, I want you to tell me when there are more than one in a row of the same color, and so on and so on. So they'd just be there. Each person's doing their job of watching a particular aspect of the behavior of the three different colored balls. Well, that's what an algorithm does. An algorithm watches the behavior of information and does the job that it's told to do and gives you the result at the end of it. So the I-field assessment process and possibility wave is called an advanced stochastic process. And what makes it advanced? This is a troublesome issue in general science, but an exciting issue in emerging science, certainly in quantum mechanics and other applied areas. It's the fact that The word itself is just a big burr in the saddle for science. It's called consciousness. And we won't go far into that, but in advanced stochastic processes, there's a position, a recognition, that consciousness acts as a modifying factor in the stochastic process. That means that some aspect of intention or awareness will have an effect in the stochastic process. That's why we call it advanced stochastic process. An advanced stochastic process recognizes and integrates consciousness as a modifying factor. I've studied, a lot of us are studying this these days. Some of the brightest minds on the planet are doing their best to appreciate this. Here in the West, probably the most famous and thoughtful and enduring, although the lab is closed down now, studying the advanced stochastic processes where consciousness and even intentional states affect the process have been proven without a doubt in a variety of very well constructed scientific experiments. Princeton, at the famous Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, spent years doing this, and what we can say is that what we have is a confident recognition that consciousness does play an important, if not critical, role in stochastic processes. Next tool, brain entrainment. This is really a pretty well-discussed subject, especially in wellness communities. Entrainment itself is known in science. It isn't just brain entrainment. Anytime that you've got two or more rhythmic processes, and they're in different stages or pulses or rhythms, if you let them associate with each other, even like pendulum clocks, that's a famous example. The other is the menstruation cycles of women living together. But that these processes end up becoming synchronized with each other. And this synchronization, where they start to follow the same beat, if you will, this is called entrainment. So in entrainment, processes that start off pulsing or beating at different rhythms, bit by bit, they all tend to join into the same single rhythm. And if there is one source that is dominant, a bigger clock with a louder tick-tock, that dominant source tends to be the leader or the coordinator to the others. Brain entrainment follows the principle of entrainment in general, and what's recognized is that the brain has quite well understood ranges of frequency because the brain has electrochemical and magnetic qualities, and you can measure these in the electrical element as frequencies, and that these different frequencies have pretty well determined categories of related subjective experience. So whether you call it calm and clear or deeply reflective or high process thinking or focus, the brainwave frequencies associated with these states are recognized. And in brain entrainment, what we do, and I think you know this, is you present, usually through sound, although other ways can be done like opticals, but through sound, you introduce certain pulses that relate to certain preferred brain states. And that over the course of some few minutes, given a relaxed attention, the brain tends to shift towards that direction. Now, it's not absolute, but it's reasonably to highly effective, especially if given the right context. And in emotional insight, we introduce this in and out of the process. I had a lot of interested and fun experience in the earlier days. I would call play the piano, that as I was taking people through these processes, I would have access through the biofeedback equipment to different specific frequencies that are associated, like say some with memory or some with introspection, and I would shift in and out of the different brain wave entrainment processes to help guide or coax them into a more comfortable response to the whole insight experience. Now I've isolated the ones that are most oftentimes used for what stages, and those are automatically programmed into the application. The way we do it, as I mentioned, is through sound, and this sound is pleasant enough. You'll see as you go through the experience that it sort of sits in the background. It's not foreground. It doesn't need to be hitting you in the forehead to have an effect. So it'll be there at different times during the application, and you may notice it or may not notice it, but believe me, your brain does. And the overall benefit is that it makes the whole process easier and creates more effective results. Next tool, action strategies. I really like this a lot, and this is a lot of the proof in the pudding, where a person going through the emotional insight experience ends up not only with understandings, but they also are able to remarkably formulate very effective action strategies for themselves. And they come right out, usually without a lot of difficulties. So what we do is, using the dynamic combination of all the different tools, inductive, inference, voice analysis, brain entrainment, eye field assessments, combining with these very powerful psychological techniques, we allow the user to formulate their own action strategies. And these are very direct and practical, real-world measures so that the person can move towards solutions to their problems. Each session, of course, is designed to increase your insight into whatever challenges you're facing. And the idea is, have insight, but do something with it. Take a positive step. And being more than just ideas, action strategies give you the structure to actually do something positive for yourself that is also true to yourself. So it is not some kind of formula from behavioristic condition that comes out of a textbook. It's an understanding of what you need to do that shows itself to you. And these action strategies are included in the process of emotional insight. The last tool I'd like to look at here are called sonic signatures, because the idea evolved over time using the biofeedback processes that it was possible to actually create tools that were transformative. They were reinforcing and therapeutic, so that you can associate all of these different experiences with particular remedies, sound remedies. And these remedies generated from the session directly relate to the challenges you're currently experiencing and the needs that you have in moving towards solution processes. The sonic signatures in emotional insight are all derived from very well-known flower remedies, gem elixirs, and homeopathic remedies that are used very effectively and have been for quite a long while in helping people move into, through, and out of different challenges in relation to emotions. So we use a set of proprietary processes. There's a whole 10-hour-long presentation that you may be aware of called Signal Encoding Theory and Biofeedback that's presented through Possibility Wave Open Classroom. If you're interested in this process of encoding, how you end up creating these sound compositions, or they don't even have to be sound, they can be in light or magnetics, you can listen to all or part of that presentation. What I'm saying here is that we use these processes to create healing tools that are encoded from the flower remedies, gem elixirs, and homeopathic remedies, and create compositions. And how do you, quote unquote, take the remedy? A few times a day you take a few moments and you listen. Put on your headphones or your earbuds and breathe, relax, and just listen to these sound compositions, the sonic signatures which act as reinforcements to your action strategies. Okay, here we are. We're at about 45 minutes. I'm going to aim for, if possible, another 15-20. This is looking at the layers. So we've gone through the tools. Now let's look at the three different domains, what I call here the three doors, that emotional insight provides for you to explore your heart and mind, for insightful understandings and solutions to the problems you currently experience in the challenge that's before you. Or it may not be an overt challenge, it may be a sincere interest in deepening your understanding of yourself and your emotional experiences. The three doors: spontaneous insight, creative imagery, and secrets and lies. These are the titles. The spontaneous insight is to help you explore your conscious mind. Creative imagery, the subconscious mind, and secrets and lies, the unconscious mind. Let's have a look briefly at each of these three. By the way, you can choose any one of these three doors, or if you're a practitioner, you can discuss with your client or your patient what would seem to be appropriate and make a judgment. In a session, you can do more than one of the layers. You can choose more than one of the doors. It kind of depends on how interested you are, how motivated you are, and I suppose how much time you have. In any case, the choice is always up to you. There are three doors. The first door, spontaneous insight. This one was a big surprise to me. You know, I like most of us, I had a kind of a respectful appreciation of the potentials of subconscious and certainly unconscious exploration. I didn't understand well, and maybe I still don't, how remarkably resourceful an exploration of the conscious mind can be. You know, the here and now, how insight can be just, as I say here, spontaneous. Boom, it's like it was just right there. So to me, it was a shock to recognize what's been hidden in plain sight. It just take a gentle nudge, or I say here sometimes a kick in the pants, that we can suddenly see something as being obvious and that it evaded us right up until that moment. It was right there. You know, why didn't I recognize it? Spontaneous insight. This is one of the doors that we use in emotional insight, one of the layers, we could say. It begins by requesting that you state, you actually say, in very simple terms, what your current issue is, you know, what you're focusing on. And then the different elements of the inductive inference designs, the voice analysis, the eye field assessment, they all join forces and bring forward clues to you. And then you're guided into a series of structured, very fluid, spontaneous acts and responses. And it is, wow, what's right there on the tip of your tongue, that when you open your mouth, boom. As I say here, you breathe, let go, take a risk, and suddenly out pops a discovery. It's a spontaneous flow of expression that I'm saying here as a sort of a metaphor, is that you just connect the dots. They're all right there. And then, as typically one thing leads to another, as soon as those dots get connected, then through the process in the program, you're given another circumstance where then you're allowed another few dots to see how they connect to the first. And layer by layer of spontaneous insight comes forward. These statements come from a collection of working with clients over the years. They say it comes right out of my mouth, right? And as soon as it comes out of the mouth, there's a recognition of the degree of truth. I would say to a person, when they say what they say, provided some clues, but they make it up, they make the statement. I said, is there any degree of truth in what you said? It's the story of my life. I've heard that so many times. It was remarkable because I was witnessing. I certainly wasn't creating. They were creating. And it's strange. It's as though, you know, they would say that they've known it all along, but maybe it wasn't accepting or respecting. I don't know what. Spontaneous insight, one of the doors. Another door, creative imagery. You know, there's been a good amount of development and use of imagery in psychological processes. Of course, imagery completely permeates creative life. Artists and scientists and philosophers all recognize the potency of human imagination. Certainly, it's one of the most highly evolved capacities of consciousness, this ability to use thought to create. And these creative thoughts are sometimes able to make great leaps over logical rationalization and arrive at truly stunning discoveries. So knowing very well that we have our capacity for creative thought, that human imagination is such a highly evolved capacity, I work to develop processes that are here called creative imagery to help explore the subconscious aspects of mind and help bring into consciousness solutions to different problems. Inevitably, symbols are involved because they are an inherent link to the subconscious mind. They're, you know, all of these understandings in the subconscious mind, they're just below the surface of your ordinary everyday mind. They're not deeply buried, it's just that they're not square in the center of the table. And here, symbols, it's a subject that was greatly developed in that big other presentation I mentioned, the signal encoding theory and biofeedback. If you're interested in the possibility wave views and understandings regarding symbols, you can have a look at that presentation. I forget which part 3 or part 4. Anyway, symbols, what are they? Well, they're the integration of meaning, memory, message, motion, and matter. To me, symbols are, I don't know, they're just incredibly amazing. In a sense, they're alive, and they unify. I mean, these things are never really separate, but they allow you to recognize the unified nature of information, energy, and matter. So the use of symbols and symbology in the door called creative imagery is critical in the exploration and discovery processes. It's a kind of a journey into your subconscious mind, and we give clues, but then give you the circumstance whereby you develop this imagined scenario, and in that scenario, the exploration is made fertile, and the discoveries present themselves. So we use professional psychological structures. These are not brand new ideas, they're well known. But we're putting them in the context of all these other tools so that what we create is the door of creative imagery. And I can say it never fails to bring to the surface what's lying just beneath but out of reach. It is an exciting, well, frankly, they're all exciting, but it's a fascinating door in emotional insight, the door of creative imagery. The last door, secrets and lies. The unconscious mind, by its very nature, is mysterious and obscure. That's why we call it unconscious. Oh, the unconscious. It's kind of like the unknown, right? You put that UN in front of it. I think it's reasonable to say that minimally, what we call the unconscious mind at a personal level is like a big storage container. And that all sorts of experiences that are maybe not thought to be so useful, or they're so significant but threatening that we don't want to use them, that they reside there. There's a whole myriad of profound and often conflicted experiences that we've gathered in our life that we cannot deny. We can pretend that don't exist. We can block them out. We can cover them over. But you cannot undo an experience you've had. You can grow through it. You can mature it. You can do many things. Or you can just try to shut it away or pretend it never happened. But that's the unconscious. It's threatening and promising to attempt a journey into your own unconscious mind. It may go unexplored for a lifetime. And then suddenly, boop, like a volcano, suddenly emerge unexpectedly. You know, I think in our contemporary society, Carl Jung is obviously the central reference to his experience and exploration of what's called the unconscious. And, you know, he has this appreciation that he labeled the collective unconscious, that the unconscious of the individual and the unconscious of their society and the unconscious of humankind, and who knows, all beings, are fluidly interacting with each other. And he came out of this with this whole appreciation of archetypes and so on. Anyway, the unconscious mind. Here in emotional insight, we use, and again, this emerged out of working with people over time, many years, that to gain leverage, one of the most effective and quick ways to gain leverage, to begin to pry open the door of the unconscious mind, because sometimes knocking just doesn't do it, or ringing the doorbell, was to go face to face with the various secrets and lies that you are aware of in your life. It may take a little bit to even recall, because we don't want to even remember that we have some of these secrets, and certainly some of the lies we've told that persist. You can try to forget, but they're not very far away. So we use access through secrets and lies into the unconscious mind. You know, that's where they go. They're sources of stress. They kind of migrate there and they hide in the shadows. And we can help you go there, but safely. Don't worry. Baby steps, sometimes giant steps, but every step you take is on your own. Secrets and lies, it's amazing, and I've seen it in action, the degree of release and relief that can come about by just facing the truth of just even one of these secrets or lies, and how a person's whole life, what I say, the ship can turn around. So many self-sabotaging behaviors, you can just see them. It's like, well, I don't, you know, God, why do I keep doing this? It's because of this. They can begin to melt from just one new single flame of understanding. That's secrets and lies. The door into the unconscious, made safe through emotional insight. Okay. If you'd like more information regarding emotional insight applications, both the personal and the professional, as well as other exciting information-coded biofeedback programs and applications, go to possibilitywave.com. This is Garnet Dupuis thanking you. Remarkably, it's 1 hour and 25 seconds. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.